Hello, I'm going to do a brief talk on what GcMaf is and what GcMaf therapy is. This will probably be done in two parts. And first, I want to explain what GcMaf is and our immune system and how it impacts that. I'm going to be using my notes, not because I don't know the topic, it's because when I start talking about health, I have a tendency to go off on rabbit trails. So I don't want to do that. I want to keep myself focused. First of all, with our immune system, we need to think of it as a team of superheroes because what their job is to do is to protect your body. So our macrophages, which are part of our immune system, they are like the cleanup crew. So their job is to find and destroy harmful invaders like viruses, bacteria, and damaged cells. So pathogens in general. GcMaf stands for glycoprotein macrophage activating factor. Our bodies already produce this. And what happens though is our body also produces another enzyme called nagalase. And to keep this very simple in understanding why GcMaf therapy is sometimes needed, I explain it like this. When somebody either has a viral overload or cancer, their body is unable to keep up making enough of the glycoprotein, the GcMaf, to keep the nagalase enzyme balanced and in check. So that is where the nagalase winds up becoming too high in the body, and the body isn't able to combat that. So those levels continue to rise. And so by using GcMaf therapy, you are basically introducing it into the body to reactivate your own immune system to continue to produce the GcMaf necessary to keep the nagalase levels down. That's why this is not a product that you stay on forever. And I like that because outside of supplementation, if you have to stay on a product long term, then I believe it's not working. It's not getting to the root of the issue and fixing it. What are our macrophages? I explained that the macrophages are our cleanup crew, but they are also a type of white blood cell that play a central role in your immune system and defense and the cleanup crew. Their name literally means big eaters, from the Greek macros, which means large, big, and then phagein, which is to eat. So it's a perfect name for them because it's big eaters, because their main job is to, like we said, get rid of all the bad pathogens, the bacteria, virus, and abnormal cells that we know as cancer. It's really neat because there's actually a video on YouTube. I think you just have to Google macrophages under a microscope. And I explain to people they literally look like little Pac-Men, and they go around and they gobble up all of the bad things in our body that need to be taken care of. They're special immune cells that come from monocytes, which is, again, a type of white blood cell, and that is made in your bone marrow. When the monocytes leave the bloodstream and they enter the tissues, they mature into what we know as macrophages. And then they exist throughout the entire body, the lung, the spleen, the liver, throughout the entire body. The main purpose of macrophages is phagocytosis, which is eating invaders. So again, they are going to digest the bacteria, the viruses, the fungi, the dead cells, and debris. So basically, they're like a cellular vacuum cleaner. Also, antigen presentation. What that means is after digesting a pathogen, macrophages will actually display pieces of it, the antigen, on their surface to alert the T cells. And that helps to trigger the T cells to adapt to the proper immune response. So think of it as basically it alerts the body, our killer T cells, and basically says, here's this, and I need you to mount up the immune system to be able to deal with it. It's pretty amazing, actually. Also, macrophages are involved in cytokine production. They release chemical messengers, the cytokines, that coordinate inflammation and attract other immune cells and promote healing. I'm sure we've all heard of the cytokine response. But that cytokine response also can become dangerous and become a cytokine storm, which is hyperinflammatory response. And this happens when the immune system overreacts to a certain trigger. Obviously, that's not good. Acute inflammation is good. That is our body's way of healing. But when we have long-term inflammation, obviously, as we all know, that is not good. I don't want to get deep into what causes a cytokine response, but I believe we all pretty much know it's autoimmune disorders, inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, MS, Crohn's, all those type of conditions. Also, cancer treatments can cause a cytokine response, nutritional deficiencies, genetic disorders, and so forth. And that isn't something I'm going to get involved in this discussion. Macrophages are also involved in tissue repair and cleanup. So they help clear away the dead tissue, but they stimulate the regeneration after injury or infection. And there's actually two major activity roles in macrophages. One is M1 macrophages. The other one is M2 macrophages. The M1 is pro-inflammatory. So that is activated during infection or injury, and that is to kill the pathogens and to trigger inflammation, because acute inflammation is natural and normal, and it's part of the immune response. And so that inflammation begins the healing process. Then there's the M2 macrophage, which is anti-inflammatory, and that is the biggest part of the repair. That's activated during recovery to reduce inflammation and to promote that tissue healing and repair. So you can see that a healthy immune system keeps a balance between the M1 and the M2 macrophages as it should. A chronic imbalance, meaning either too many of the M1 or too many of the M2, can then contribute to significant health issues and conditions such as an autoimmune disease or chronic infections or even cancer. Next, I'm going to cover the nagalase enzyme. Nagalase is short for, and I'm going to attempt this, alpha-N acetylgalactosaminidase. And I think I slaughtered that, but that's why we only call it nagalase. It's a very long word. And it's an enzyme that's naturally produced, like I said earlier, in the body. And also, though, it's produced by certain viruses and cancer cells. And its role in the body under normal conditions is that nagalase is made inside liposomes, which is our cellular recycling centers. But it also helps to degrade complex sugars and proteins, which is part, again, of the routine cellular cleanup. It's produced in low levels during normal cell turnover and immune activity. So if somebody's body is doing that naturally and the levels are low, they're not going to have a high nagalase level. So some nagalase in our system is completely normal. When the nagalase levels become elevated, it is generally due to a virus-infected cell and or cancer cells. Those are what overproduce nagalase and increase those levels. This is important and it matters because nagalase can interfere with the activation of a key immune protein called GC protein, also known as the vitamin D binding protein. This is why it's imperative to be taking vitamin D while using GcMaf therapy. Normally, the GC protein can be converted into the GcMaf, which is a molecule that helps to activate the macrophages. Again, your immune system's big eaters and cleanup crew. High nagalase activity, though, blocks this conversion, meaning macrophages don't get fully enacted or activated. So what this leads to is it's going to suppress immune function, and it makes it so much easier for things like autoimmune disorders from viruses and also cancer to take hold. I am going to pause here and go to video number 2, part 2.